Welcome to the Black Women Talk Tech podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Lowe. Each episode features conversations with a Black woman founder building an innovative technology company. Black Women Talk Tech is a collective that identifies, supports, and encourages Black women to build the next billion-dollar business. Welcome to the Black Women Talk Tech podcast. I'm Chelsea Lowe, and today I'm talking to Yemi. Yemi is product officer for Civic Eagle. Civic Eagle's mission is to use technology to promote better democratic outcomes for people and their communities. Yemi is a former policy analyst for the New York State Legislature and a self-taught UX/UI designer. Yemi completed her master's in public administration from the Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy and her BA in politics and philosophy from the University of Pittsburgh. Yemi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started on Civic Eagle?
Sure. Like you mentioned, my background actually is in political science and like the political and policy space. Like all my life, I grew up wanting to go down like the lawyer path, legal path. I studied political science and later determined I didn't want to be a lawyer. But my first years of my career in the public policy space. And I was working in higher education policy at the New York State Legislature. And from that experience, really got my feet wet in the way that laws and bills are introduced into the legislature and how they ultimately get lobbied for and get implemented into law and into communities. So I spent a lot of time studying that before thinking about Civic Eagle and how innovation and technology can be introduced to this interesting space. My business partner approached me, at the time we're friends, and he approached me about like how to understand policy. And so we embarked on Civic Eagle and creating a mobile app that would connect individuals to information about politics and who represents them and what kinds of issues are arising in their communities for them to learn about and be able to express their opinion about. So that's how Civic Eagle got started. And it also was the impetus of me transitioning careers from being a policy analyst and policy professional into becoming a UX designer. So working on our mobile app during those initial years of our company really exposed me to the world of product design, and I loved it. I found it was like a really interesting intersection of my passions of like problem solving and analysis, as well as my passion for like creativity and technology and innovation and like cool concepts, right? Like being able to experiment and try new things. So made that career shift a few years ago, and from there really taught myself the fundamentals of UX and UI design and got some really cool on-the-job experiences at design agencies and small startups to learn the product development cycle and work within teams to build really cool projects and products that have social impact outcomes from them. So I wasn't just building cool technology, I was building technology that helped the hiring and recruitment of diverse students and applicants. I was working on at a company that employed engineers out of Africa to really cool companies for them to give them an opportunity to learn and grow in engineering. So yeah, I really found this intersection of like social impact as well as technology and innovation and really kind of honed in on that. And that's what I've been focused on for the past, I guess now almost 4 years now. And all the while still building Civic Eagle. And our company has pivoted and grown over the past few years since we initially had our first idea. It's been a great journey, and I'm just really happy to have found a career that blends a lot of my passions and interests as well as my skills.
Great, thanks. So can you share more about your software InView and the problem that it's solving for lobbyists and public policy professionals?
Sure. At Civic Eagle, we've launched our flagship product, which is called InView, and it's a legislative intelligence software platform. We work with for-profit enterprise companies as well as nonprofit organizations to build a software solution that allows them to identify, track, and analyze legislation and propose policies at the state level, which is very fundamental to their work, being able to analyze and do their work in one central location. If you're an organization or a company who operates and is impacted by policy implications. So anytime a new law or bill might impact the way you operate your business or the way you're able to fulfill the functions of your organization, you have this responsibility to keep track of these policies. A lot of times you see that in government affairs departments or policy teams within a company or an organization. And so our software allows our users, our customers, to be able to have a workflow that is modern, is innovative, and uses advanced technology. So we're implementing artificial intelligence and machine learning and cool things like natural language processing to allow our users and customers to analyze bills at a higher level. They're able to track these bills, collaborate with their teams seamlessly. So similar to like the way Slack has revolutionized the way that a lot of teams work within startups or even medium-sized enterprises. That kind of thing doesn't exist in the policy space. You're working with really outdated technology. You're relying on outdated websites that aren't mobile friendly, that aren't user friendly. And so you're spending countless hours really just trying to get to like the basic level of understanding of policy instead of the hard work of advocating on behalf of your organization or advocating on behalf of your company or the people that you represent. And so we found that there was such an opportunity for us to bring technology and what we know about data and know about collaboration and productivity tools into a space that hasn't really seen this before or hasn't seen it in a very long time. Some of our customers spend hours pretty much copying and pasting bill text, for example, into a Word document in order to compare information, compare different versions of a bill. What we're doing is we're pulling all of that legislative data across the country at the state level, as well as at the federal level, into our database so that our customers are able to analyze it holistically. So if you're an organization that operates, for example, in New York, as well as in Oklahoma, you're able to do your work as far as tracking, identifying, and collaborating with your teams all in one central place. It's a really user-friendly and mobile-friendly, modern experience.
So I'm curious to know what's your market approach or your market strategy to reach these customers?
Right now, we currently work with 7 customers in Minnesota, Georgia, and California. And our strategy really is we've had some relationships with nonprofit organizations and coalitions in Minnesota, in the city of Minneapolis specifically, in Atlanta, Georgia, and in San Francisco. And our strategy really is to work with these customers and help them in their day-to-day tracking and identification of bills, as well as how they operate and work with other organizations in their coalitions or within organizations that they are already a part of. And our strategy from there is to really grow within those industries that they primarily focus on.
And what are those industries?
So the industries that they work in: racial justice and social justice, criminal justice reform, the environment. We have one of our customers, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, is based in San Francisco, and they're focused on a lot of environmental policy subjects as well as social justice subjects. And then we also are working with an enterprise customer down in Atlanta, Georgia, in the telecommunications industry. And what we're finding is that by being able to work closely with our beta customers right now, we'll be able to see what's working for them and then expand accordingly within those industries or with like parallel or adjacent industries. We've been blessed enough to be able to work with a variety of different types of organizations. So we see both like a small nonprofit organization, but as well as corporate organization, enterprise level organization that's rather large, and really seeing where the features of our products work within their teams, which will give us insight as we expand our market.
Great. And I'm curious to know more about your experience with access to capital. I saw that you had been a part of Backstage Capital and also had worked with Comcast and Camelback Ventures. Could you share more about your experience accessing capital in that process?
Sure. So like I mentioned, our company, we started out actually in 2015 with a different product. And that was really our opportunity to kind of like fail fast. We realized that we were working on a product that really needed a lot of capital and needed a lot of metrics to be able to be even looked at for capital, a venture capital raise. So we really learned the fundamentals and ins and outs of like what we need and like how much money we needed to raise in order to pull something off. In that journey, we leaned to our networks for, support and resources in order to like help us just get a better understanding of what VCs are looking for and what makes a venture backable. So we looked at programs like Camelback, like Founder Gym, and we saw that there are some programs that are focused really for like the founder support and just like the sharing of knowledge amongst founders and like just understanding the fundraising landscape. And that really gave us some insight onto how to approach fundraising. We also at the same time like learned a lot about what our first product was missing and what that business model was missing. And so we're able to pivot into a B2B model, this SaaS platform that we've been working on. That's when we pivoted was when we really realized the opportunity for us to reach out to programs like The Farm, which was based in Atlanta. It's an early stage accelerator program, but we were applied for and were invited to the Google for Entrepreneurs Black Founders Exchange out in Durham, North Carolina.
Can you tell us more about those two programs?
So Google for Entrepreneurs Black Founders Exchange. Google for Entrepreneurs is a program. It's institutionalized within Google. They have different themes and different cohorts of their Google for Entrepreneurs program. The one that we were a part of was the Black Founders Exchange, and it was a week-long experience where it was kind of just like an intensive, right? We're around other startup founders, people of color, and we had access to mentors and workshops, presentations around different elements of building a startup and growing a startup. So everything from marketing, branding, and sales strategy, learning about invest technology like machine learning and how it might be applicable to our businesses. It was just a really cool experience to be like around other founders of color and really have like people that you could vent to and be honest with and learn from and grow from and create bonds with. So programs like that are kind of, I would say, are more founder focused, create great opportunities for you to learn and take your company to the next step by learning about another program that is similar or another program that might be like that next step on the ladder for your company. That event, the Black Founders Exchange, ended with a pitch competition. And that's where we pitched in front of some judges. And one of those judges was Arlen Hamilton from Backstage Capital. And my business partner, Demola, who is the CEO of my company, he pitched and killed it. And Arlen was really impressed. And that's when she invested in us. And from there, we kind of took that momentum and were able to apply to an accelerator program. So we applied to The Farm in Atlanta, Georgia. And that program is a partnership between Comcast and the Boomtown Accelerator. And that was an early stage accelerator program, which really focused primarily on product discovery. And we had a lot of time to really challenge our business idea and challenge our business model and test it out, which I think is really, really important and crucial in the beginning of your company and of your idea. You really want to make sure that you've challenged all the assumptions you may have about the industry, about the market.
What was one assumption that you made that The Farm really helped you to analyze or to rethink?
So one thing that we constantly battle is how much innovation will be received within our industry. So we're working in a field that's really traditional and doesn't often see like great change. And so we really needed to test out like how far we can go with the innovation and the lingo that we use in front of our customers. And like, are we assuming that our customers will easily adopt something that's maybe so much more efficient? Is it too efficient for them? Or would it be too much to adopt for our target customers? So we really just had to do a lot of interviews. They gave us opportunity to go out and talk to real customers. And if we weren't sure who those customers were, they would provide us with the tools to really figure that out. They have a great mentorship network. And so they were able to offer us guidance or point us in the direction of who might have some more insight in the industry that we're working in. So we spoke to policy professionals and lobbyists for, probably like the first 6 weeks, is really just about, or rather the first 2 weeks is intensely about experimentation, but every week after in that 12-week program, we always had to report back how many new interviews we did or, what assumptions we tested that week. And that really just got us in the habit of you can never ask too many questions about your target audience. You can never ask too many questions about the problem that you're trying to solve. And those interviews, that experimentation is really crucial because it allows you to do other things like product planning and planning out your sprints for your dev team or thinking about the insights you get from interviews inform your sales strategy, they inform your marketing strategy, they inform your pricing model. So asking those questions frequently is really what we got out of that whole experience at the farm. Really is just like the methodology of research and how to then take those insights and put it back into your company.
Do you all have a dream customer? So if there was someone that you could have lunch with, a potential client that you're really interested in, who would that be?
Oh gosh, I haven't consulted the rest of
Or for you?
For me, and I think my business partners might agree, the Obama Foundation, for example, in that use case, the Obama Foundation, the folks at that organization who are in charge of understanding how policies work in different states around the country. Like if you want to have the maximum impact around the nation, you have to understand where policies are around the nation. And our product does that. And there is no other product that then implements AI and machine learning to get interesting insights around these policies, allowing everyday users, policy professionals to do their jobs better and more efficiently. So we would work with the Obama Foundation to allow, especially since they track and are tied to different policy areas. They're doing work in social justice, but different components of that, right? Healthcare, different components of that. And so our tool would, for example, be able to assist them in that work, allow them to collaborate within their team, and then generate really cool reports and insights that they could, report up to their team and the people that they serve. So hopefully one day we can work with them.
Well, shoot your shot. I'm all for that. I'm curious to know, I've seen that Civic Eagle works in Atlanta, Minneapolis, and Washington, D.C. How would you describe the difference between the tech ecosystems in the cities that you work in?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's changing. I also, before moving to DC recently, I was living in New York City for about 3 years. And so I have some experience within that tech ecosystem as well. I would say, Washington, D.C. has been great. I'm new to the city. And, I think tech is everywhere in every city. How large that scene is, can be relative. And, nothing, of course, compares to Silicon Valley or, the Bay Area or New York. But I would say that most of the cities that I've been in and have networked within, there is a tech scene, whether it's at the intersection of politics and technology or data and technology or the financial district and technology. I think most cities have an emerging scene and a community. Meetup.com is usually the first place I go to when I'm in a city to see what kind of meetups are happening. Looking up that city startup week is always a good place for me to start as well, to see if they have a startup week and who are the sponsors and which organizations are helping to put it on. DC is, like I said, I've been exploring a lot this intersection of like civic technology. So companies that are working on social impact objectives, as well as, scalability. In Atlanta, it's, a robust community as well. I really enjoyed my time at the accelerator program in Atlanta because I was able to interact with so many, especially people of color in tech down in Atlanta, and a lot of communities and networking opportunities in that city. Minneapolis, our company is headquartered there. We primarily started there because most of our team lived out there at the time that we started. And a lot of our initial projects and initial work was in the Minneapolis-St. Paul community, the Twin Cities. So that city has supported us over the years, and we've grown a network there. But we also knew that there was an opportunity if we spread our wings a little bit. We've always been a distributed team, meaning that we have no physical location where we all sit and meet. I've always been based outside of where our company's been headquartered. So we really rely on Slack and email and meetings over the phone to really get our work done and work as a team. And we just, we don't want to be limited by our location. And so we've been able to, because we're distributed, because we've kind of been distributed since the beginning of our company, we've been able to see that if there's an opportunity in a different city that we need to be at, then we'll do what we can to be there. And so being able to travel as a team or to be represented in other cities has always been an advantage for us, I would say.
And what would you say is the long-term vision or goal for Civic Eagle?
We have the very lofty mission of using technology to improve democratic outcomes and increase public participation in communities. And, the long-term vision is that, politics might not be perfect, it may not be pretty, but use data-driven insights and technology to get to the source of truth. Our values center around being audacious, like our mission is, but also people-centric, and government is supposed to be about the people. So let's use technology to get to the root of what people want, as well as transparency. So we really want to focus on we envision a world where policy is transparent and everyone has access to just even understanding what is impacting their communities and how they can have a voice in that. And so the long-term vision is, just better outcomes based on data-driven insights. And so we're doing that, and we're approaching that by first making the policies accessible and transparent. You'd be really surprised how challenging it is to understand how a law impacts you. You pay taxes every year. You're expected to pay taxes every year. You're expected to do your civic duty and be a good neighbor and be a good citizen. But it's often really hard to understand how even the slightest changes to a bill might impact you one day. And realizing that you didn't have an opportunity to speak up about it or express your opinion about it. And so we see the opportunity in how making policies accessible and making the process of policymaking, or the process of influencing policy a better way, in a more modern way, something that we can relate to in the 21st century, in 2019, we just want more. We just want more and expect more from the policy process in our communities. So that's why we work on what we're doing right now. And we look forward to working on other really cool challenges, like public challenges, through the use of technology, of course, making the world a better place, but at the same time, building a really sustainable company with a great company culture and, great talent and great passion,
Great. And what advice do you have for other Black women tech founders?
I've been really blessed over this journey, journey of changing careers and discovering this great intersection of my passions. I think mostly because of the people around me and the support I've gotten over the years as far as encouragement. And I appreciate when I go to some of these programs and I interact with, other Black women and other people of color, founders of color, and can just kind of have people to listen to you and even if you're venting or even if you're, stressed or frustrated about something, having somebody that can relate to what you're going through. And so my advice is, when you go if you choose to go through programs, or if you choose to join communities, really take advantage of the people in those communities, because they're generally also on that similar mission and path of, wanting to be successful, as well as facing the similar hurdles that you are facing. So I would say that on the kind of founder sanity side of things. On the product side of things, on the actual what's it like to build a startup, I can't emphasize enough how much testing assumptions, creating hypotheses around what you're building and the company you're building, the product or your business model, testing all those things out. And it can be in small ways, but I think it's really important to go through that product discovery process of, what's the problem you're solving? What are the different solutions you think might solve this problem, and figure out who to ask and talk to and test this out with, and really, really, really know the problem that you're solving, and be open to what it would look like if it were to change a little bit. Could you serve more people? Could you do more if you open your mind up a little bit to a different perspective on it? And the only way you can really do that is by talking to your ideal customer as much as possible, and not just talking to them for their sake, but to actually gain insights out of there and really think about the problem you're solving more critically. And at the same time, also remembering that you don't just need a great idea, you need a great way to monetize it and create revenue if you are going the venture capital route. So one thing that that I've learned through going through these programs and talking to other founders is that, venture capital isn't for everyone. And that process it's talked about a lot in the media, and we kind of see the big numbers, we see the big exits, and we aspire to that kind of journey, but not everyone's journey is the same. And so you may have a really great idea, but unless you've thought of a really creative way or a really strong way rather to monetize it, venture might not be for you. And there are other methods for capitalization of your business. So whether that's loans or grants, if unless you are ready to raise money and able to really think about like the long-term scalability and growth of that business, unless you've done that, you really, venture capital may not be for you. And so kind of, I guess, like the advice, if I were to summarize it down, is just like to just think more critically about the goals for your company, the scalability and growth of it before going out to fundraise in the venture capital way. And that might mean thinking about, different ways to frame your business from maybe a B2C model into like a B2B model that allows you to scale a lot faster and is a little more, stable. If you're able to like think about your business in a reoccurring or a scalable way. And that usually can happen with a B2B model. Those are my pieces of advice.
Well, thank you so much for being so honest about your journey and sharing those pieces of advice. Really appreciate it. And thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Chelsea Lowe. More resources for Black women tech founders are available at blackwomentalktech.com. This podcast was produced by the Enterprise Center's The Grit Studios. Links to resources mentioned are available in the show notes below. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Catch you next time on the Black Women Talk Tech podcast.